Hello and welcome to today's Standard Process webinar. Today's presentation is titled Week 3, the Weekly Purification Warrior Journey, and will be presented by Dr. Kimberly Besuden. My name is Katie and I'll be moderating today's webinar. And now a brief disclaimer. Standard Process sponsors these webinars to provide healthcare information to healthcare professionals and consumers, and to provide them with the opportunity to hear about the views, recommendations, and experiences of other healthcare professionals. Standard Process has not evaluated the legal status of any products, other than its own or those of MediHerb, services, or recommendations with respect to state or federal laws, including scope of practice. Standard Process does not and cannot accept responsibility for errors or omissions, or for any consequences from the applications of the information provided, and makes no warranty, expressed or implied, with respect to the information provided. The views expressed in this webinar concerning Standard Process, MediHerb, or any other product are those of the presenter and not of Standard Process. Tonight we are happy to welcome Dr. Besuden to present tonight's webinar. Dr. Besuden is a doctor of chiropractic and certified functional medicine practitioner. She has created several curriculums with innovative techniques to help not only her patients, but also her colleagues better understand nutrition and its impact on well-being. The Standard Process 21-Day Purification Program is a passion of hers, and she has been teaching the program to healthcare professionals and patients for more than a decade.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. You've completed the second week of the 21-Day Purification. Congratulations. Changing your diet can do not only to your health, but just even your well-being. So we're going to talk about some trans fatty acids tonight and how they're naturally reduced in a purification program, because we're actually selecting fiber-dense and nutrient-rich foods that you're eating, but I'll talk a little bit more about those as we go. So continued weight management combined with daily exercise. Remember, we talked last time about doing 10,000 steps in a day. Get your pedometers out, your smartphones out, whatever you have, and use that to track it for your accountability. My class is running right alongside you. We have our classes tomorrow night and Wednesday night. So we weigh each week, so that gives us some accountability for my patient program and following it all the way through. On next week, which will be the finale. So produce section, you pick up an apple, there's no ingredient label on there because it's clear what that is. Keep that in mind. So these foods that you see here, they're things of the past. That doesn't mean you'll never eat them again, but I'm trying to teach you to be more mindful about the ingredients you put in your body. So 7 days from now, you're going to be blown away by how much you've improved and how you look, feel, and perform, or you're going to regret not having done your best. The choice is yours. So I always, really, work with my patients, and that's why we do these weekly classes with them. It's to create that motivation, keep them from stepping off the program, and giving them support in between times. So, reach out to your practitioner. Reach out to Standard Process. We'll give you an email at the end that if you have any additional questions, you can send to them and they'll respond. Remember your same vegetables, page 11, all these vegetables. You can have your unlimited veggies. Try to eat as organic as much as possible. And remember, you still can't have corn, peas, or white potatoes. Save those for after the purification. Make your own salad dressings. None of those pre-made things. Get those out of there. And remember for their fruit, for their shakes. It's too easy to have a bunch of grapes that have 1 whole cup of lentils per day, or calamari oil, to get those good oils in there. So remember, spring water, mineral water, herbal teas, those are all a go. I did give you permission to have some green tea, even though it has a little bit of caffeine. It still is much, the antioxidant level that it supplies is so high, I don't mind having you add that in. Remember, increase your water, and if you're eating, drinking your shakes and eating veggies, you are getting water from that. So you don't have to be strict about 8-ounce glasses, because you are getting some water as you eat. And as far as the supplements that you'll be taking, it's the same as last week. It's the 5 green food, and 5 green food in the morning, 5 green food in the evening, and then your gastrofiber. Remember, because I would miss the 3 in the afternoon, I started splitting my gastrofiber doses up. So I did 5 green food in the morning with 5 gastrofiber, and then I did 5 green food at night with cookies that are coming out of a package, from the grocery store. What exactly is a trans fatty acid? Well, Webster Dictionary says that it's an unsaturated fatty acid, double bonds. Consumption of these acids, the 2 orange-colored H's, where there's the hydrogens, and they really should be on the same side. So let me show you a little better picture. This is how I explain it to my patients. So the molecular structure of the trans fatty acid, what happens is the partial hydrogenation reconfigures most of the double bonds so that they don't become chemically saturated, and they twist them so that the hydrogen atoms then end up on different sides of the chain. So what I basically tell my patients is, like, if you take your arm off and you take one leg off and then you switch their position, you have all the parts there, all the parts are available, but they don't look anything like what they should. So you can see in the little circle to the lower, the mid left, that you can see how the hydrogens kind of split, and we're twisted biochemists, but I think if you can understand how this is different, and we've done this by reconfiguring those double bonds. So what's the big deal about trans fatty acids? Well, there's a couple things. First, trans fats, they increase inflammation, which is a process that your body does naturally. So if you can, think about not only on just the blood vessel, but actually the cell lining of the blood vessels, and that's where the inflammation increases all with 3 fatty acids attached. And they're a type of fat that's found in your blood. Maintaining that healthy triglyceride level is really important. In a normal range, it helps have a good heart and circulatory health. So we want to make sure we keep the triglycerides in there. Some of the other effects, we have to understand that when we eat those trans fats, lipoprotein, which is a cholesterol found in varying levels in your blood, depending on your genetic makeup. Some people have naturally higher LDL. But what happens is that LDL, you think of it as a low flood in the blood vessels. And if you look at the picture on the circle to the right, you can see how that cholesterol kind of, that low-density lipoprotein cholesterol kind of loads up along the sides and narrows the pathway for that blood to be able to travel. Problem is if one of that little piece, the cholesterol into smaller and denser lipid particles, and that's where that plaquing happens. It kind of builds up in the arteries. So why are they so bad? Well, it kind of becomes a little bit of a fight when the trans fats are being eaten. High-density lipoprotein, which is a slick fluid, the lipoprotein that kind of goes through and acts almost like a lubricant for the arteries. And so it flies high and keeps sailing. It has to try to manage all that bad cholesterol. So while you're putting the bad cholesterol in, the good cholesterol is trying to shovel it back out, and it just can't keep up with the load. So, they sound so terrible. Well, why do we use them? In our food industry is the biggest factor where they're used. The largest amount of trans fats consumed today are from processed foods. And as a side effect of those hydrogenating unsaturated plant fats in general, basically vegetable oils, they're all in the foods for a specific reason, because of cost. They're very inexpensive, and they're a great alternative to some of the semi-solid oils, such as palm oil. So when when the manufacturers bake foods, they require, and I'm not much of a baker, but those that bake will use like a semi-solid fat, like butter or some other kind of animal fat, to suspend the solids at room temperature. Well, when we partially hydrogenate oils, that gives them almost the same consistency, so they can replace the animal fats, such as butter or lard, at a lower cost. So we're saving money for the manufacturers, but our health is not being saved. And then the partial hydrogenation increases product shelf life and also decreases refrigeration requirements. It's just not right when you can have a food sitting on your in your pantry for a year and it's still okay. I mean, our vegetables we buy every 3 to 4 days, so we always have something fresh. But wait, there's more, because the trans fats are used in shortening for deep frying in restaurants. That's another reason why we want to try to get you to eliminate your trips to the fast food places. And they're used for longer than most conventional oils before they become rancid. So it's another cost-saving effect there. And if you're in a food chain, like I live in Florida and you're living maybe in the Midwest, the fast food chains routinely use different fats in different locations because of cooking needs. And the trans fat levels in fast food restaurants can have a large variation. Back in the early 21st century, then the non-hydrogenated vegetable oils became available that have lifespans that exceed that of the frying shortening. So, I always tell patients, it's like, these oils have a very, very high boiling point. And if our body heat is 98.6, give or take, our body will never heat up enough to burn those trans fats off. So there's another issue with that. So we don't really want to put them in. If you eat out a lot, you've got to be aware that some restaurants still use trans fats. So we've used margarine for years now because we were told it was a healthy choice. So let me just tell you how it's really made. So they take the soybeans, corn, cottonseed, or canola seeds, and they extract those oils by a high temperature and pressure. Then the remaining fraction of those oils are removed. They use hexane and some other solvents, which now make those oils rancid. They steam clean them to remove all the vitamins and antioxidants, but any pesticides or solvents or any other residuals are still there. Then they mix the oils with a nickel catalyst, and then they subject that mixture to a hydrogen gas in a high-pressure, high-temperature reactor. So then they'll mix in some soap-like emulsifier. So basically it looks like a gray cottage cheese. Sounds yummy, doesn't it? So then the oil is then steam cleaned because it has such a terrible odor right now, and then they bleach it because it's got a gray color. And then, of course, they've got to put in everything they took out, so now they're going to put in artificial flavors, synthetic vitamins, and natural color, pack it up in a block or a tub, and then they advertise it as health food. Well, there's nothing healthy about that. So you can see why your body has a hard time processing it. So I want you to really learn tonight to learn to read labels. So you need to know that even when they're in there, and from the big wigs on the there's partially hydrogenated soybean oil. And if you look above that, it says liquid canola oil. And then down below that, it says it again, hydrogenated soybean oil. So, here, there's trans fats. There's actually 3 of them in there. I just circled the one. And then if you look up, on the label, it says no trans fats. Well, but there are. Why is that? So saturated fats, this slide's a little bit out of order, but I'll talk about this and then we'll go on to the other part. So what's the difference between saturated fats and trans? Remember, saturated fats are going to be your butter and your lard. Interfere with that. Saturated fats suppress them, lower the bad and raise the good to improve heart health, while the trans fat do just the opposite. And the omega-3s are put into the tissue and conserved by the saturated fats, while the trans fats actually reduce those levels in the tissue. So the other great thing is that the saturated fats help to enhance the immune system, while of course the trans fats depress the immune system. So just like margarine, which was back in the day was actually illegal, and the government didn't like that. I read the stories where they would have a kind of a grayish white. It was a lot of hard time for these people because they really thought they were getting something good. They're being denied it. So of course, when you're denied something, you want it even more. So just remember, butter is better. So here are the foods that are in the typical, in the supermarkets. When I go look at, these are all the foods that I popcorn, candy, margarine, potato chips, pastries, now. So you'll see on the label that says 0 grams of trans fat. That little asterisk means it's still bad for your heart. So let's just talk real quick about how to read a label. So this is your label reading basics 101. So 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. So if you look at the label, you'll see that it says 8 grams of fat. So you multiply that by 9, you get 72. And the nutrition labels are always lined up this way: the fat, the total carbohydrate, and then the proteins. So then a carbohydrate is equal. 1 gram of carbohydrate is equal to 4 calories. So there's 12 grams times 4 is 48, and then the protein, there's 8 grams times 4 is 32. So that's a total of 152 calories. You look at the label, it says serving size. 1 calorie is 150, but we came up with, they said there's 8 up there, so there's another 1 gram that's floating around there. So it's interesting how we don't know that it's by 8, and that would make you maybe think a little bit. Label, this is one of the ones I go in the stores and take pictures of trans fat. If the food product contains less than 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving. Thus, if a product contains partially hydrogenated oil, then it might contain small amounts of trans fat, even if the label says 0 grams of trans fat. And when you get to your program tomorrow, you'll see this label. You can look up that FDA.gov, and that'll take you to that exact statement there. But look at this label. It has partially hydrogenated soybean oil, and right next to it from last week, high fructose corn syrup. Both things you don't want to have. And if you look down a little bit further, there's soybean oil in there. There's a couple other things, maltodextrin. That's another form of sugar. So, and then we look at the trans fat, and it says 0 grams. And these were croutons, and who eats 5 croutons? So if you eat 10 croutons, you've had more than your share of trans fats for the day. And you can see all over the packet it says, no preservatives, no cholesterol, oils, coconut and palm, if they're organic and mouth. And the bad fats, these are heated at very high temperature to make a better choice. So the unsaturated fats, the good fats, are found in nuts, avocados, and veggies. And their fats cause it to be lower in calories than those other fats. The fats that are found mostly in animal products are called saturated fats, and the consumption of saturated fats should be in healthy moderation. But the trans fats, they're unsaturated fats which have been partially saturated with hydrogen to extend their shelf life. That doesn't even sound appealing to me. And it's found to elevate the LDL or bad cholesterol, so they should be avoided. So what do you want to look for in the label? What would indicate a trans fat? So these are the words we see: hydrogenated oil, partially hydrogenated oil, hydrogenated coconut oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, vegetable oil, corn oil. So those are the things you want to look for. I tell my patients that you can't expect to look like here is your plan of action, because I give you homework every week. So we want to identify, purify, strengthen, and replenish. So identify, I want you to learn to read your food labels. I want you to decipher those food aliases as well as how to replace those ingredients. And then we want to purify as well as support the liver and gallbladder. Filled with stamina, energy, and vitality. Who doesn't want that? And you can look at those pictures of the vegetables and the fruits. I mean, it looks far better than the food that we were showing on that first slide. And then replenish. You want to rejuvenate with powerful food sources from nutrient-rich and free of cookbook to do this. This is a no-brainer. You can do this. You got this. So I always tell my patients what to avoid when in doubt. If it's not in the program guide, you can't. Or those are important to keep out of your repertoire for the next week here. So here's your plan of action. Read those labels. Eliminate those foods that have trans fats from your pantry or refrigerator. Start with one or the other. Replace with extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, sesame. Get a book to you. Sell you a book. Get it shipped to you. If we follow in a healthy lifestyle, no doctor can cure us. If we follow a healthy lifestyle, no doctor may be needed.